Hey everyone, thanks so much for tuning in today. Before we get started on this PNW draft profile, today is a big day in which it is official that college athletes can sign endorsements. So if you, on the side chance, are a college athlete watching this or know a college athlete that's got an endorsement that they want to plug, we want to let you guys know that this podcast and this show is a place where you can do that. If you have something you want to plug as a college athlete, hit us up at yballstarters@gmail.com or slide into our DMs on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you come on our podcast episode, we'll let you plug your stuff. We'll work with your sponsor if they want to sponsor an episode as well. We're happy to do that, kind of get some business deals rolling in that way. In return, you don't owe us anything except a 45-minute fun podcast episode where we talk hoops, we swap some stories, and you get your deal out there, and hopefully we can all walk away with some cash and having a good time.
We're especially biased to people who are sponsored through IHOP because we really love IHOP. So if you or anyone that you know are sponsored by IHOP, please, for the love of everything, come on to this show.
Yeah. IHOP sponsored. I guarantee that we would use those free IHOP passes. Kendall and I would go get a nice pancake dinner, and John would probably get avocado toast. And,
more than likely, it's a good guess.
But we'd use it. So it's a win-win for everyone. Again, hit up our line if we're interested in that. But let's get to these PNW draft profiles. So there's 4 guys, really 5 if you count Filip Petrusev, who played at Gonzaga before playing a year in Serbia. But we're going to focus on 4 players, 1 each week, leading up to the NBA draft. Those guys are Jalen Suggs, Corey Kispert, and Joel Ayayi of Gonzaga, and Chris Duarte of Oregon, all expected to be taken on the 29th of July, which is 4 weeks from today, actually, on the day we're recording this.
Coming up.
So today we're going to look at Gonzaga's Joel Ayayi, a 6'5", 180-pound guard out of Bordeaux, France. He came out of Gonzaga after his junior season, in which, as everyone in the Pacific Northwest basically knows, Gonzaga wins their first 31 games. Phenomenal season. They get to the national championship and just fall short to Baylor. Ayayi, Kendall, what stood out about his college career in your mind? A guy that kind of came out of nowhere for a second there and then just really became really steady, and now he's expected to be picked late first round, most likely second round.
Yeah, I think the thing with the Ayayi is his improvement every year has been very noticeable, especially for those who have followed Gonzaga. And then even like heading into the end of this year, he started to become just more of a well-known name in general. I mean, he was still overshadowed by Corey Kispert, Drew Timme, Jalen Suggs. Like, those were the 3 main guys. But personally, I was really impressed by Ayayi this year. I just thought that he had a really good season. It was good to see him improve, not only in just his overall play, but in his shooting. His shooting percentages went way up. His cuts. He is such a good cutter, and we'll get probably more into that, I'm sure, in this segment. Oh my gosh, he is so good. Like, he fits exactly what NBA teams are looking for. He can cut and he can hit the 3 ball. And he's also been in an offense at Gonzaga that runs so many different plays there. It's not just stagnant ISO ball. Like, the guys are running around. So he already has experience with kind of that NBA motion offense style.
Yeah, that I think was the skill that stuck out to him the most. And that's a thing that signifies is impressive about him, is that he's going to know exactly what his role is and he's going to excel at it, because he recognized that he didn't have to be a shooter, although he really turned that up in the tournament. His 3-point shooting was really good. But he knew that they had a sharpshooter in Corey Kispert. He knew that he had a new point guard who was going to get him the ball if he was open in Jalen Suggs. And they had the post threat with Drew Timme. So Ayayi's role was to cut, be a veteran, and always be in the right spot. And he was every single time. Watching highlights of Ayayi, you will just notice where you won't even really find him in the play necessarily, because Suggs or Kispert or Timme is the dominant ball handler. And the play is running through those 3 guys for 25 seconds. And then just at the last minute, suddenly Ayayi just darts wide open backdoor. He just times it so perfectly well. He, lucky for him, played in a really, really smart offense, especially last year, kind of to your point, with really, really smart players. But I think that'll translate really well to the NBA. You kind of look at him as kind of I don't think he's going to ever be this good, although I hope he proves me wrong, but kind of an Andre Iguodala type where he can fit onto a team where there's already a lot of established shooters and he just has to knock down the open three, which he proved he can do in the tournament. Always be in the right spot at the right time, rebound really, really well for a guard. He was probably the best rebounder for guards last year in the entire country. Smart passer. And he also showed that he shows up in the biggest moments when the back's against the wall. Looking at the game log, obviously excluding the national championship, which was a down game for all Gonzaga players.
It was really not the time to shine for Gonzaga there.
But Ayayi's two best games were the two other times Gonzaga came the closest to losing outside of the national championship, where obviously they lost. In the Final Four against UCLA, obviously is famous for Jalen Suggs' incredible banked-in three-pointer at the buzzer in overtime. But in that game, Ayayi played 42 minutes, so more than a full game. He was 9 of 12 from the field, 2 of 3 from 3, and grabbed 6 rebounds, a couple steals and assists to tag along there. So an unbelievably efficient game, and they obviously needed every single one of those points from Ayayi there, all throughout the tournament. And then against West Virginia, that's another game. Suggs got hurt. Timmy wasn't shooting well in the first half, so they just doubled Kispert and trapped him on the perimeter. And Ayayi went 10 of 15, and then had 7 rebounds, looks like. Yeah, 7 rebounds and 4 assists and 4 steals. An incredible floor game with 21 points. And Gonzaga holds off West Virginia there, 87-82. So not only is Ayayi always going to be in the right place at the right time, you're going to get his best when it matters.
Yeah. And I think one thing I kind of want to hit on is you mentioned the name Andre Iguodala. Personally, I don't know if I would quite compare him to Andre, just because in my time watching Ayayi and then also reading up on him in some of these draft analysis, he does lack some strength, which Iguodala definitely did not lack. Iguodala is a very strong defender, whereas Ayayi is a little bit more finesse, which is interesting because he gets so many rebounds. So you would think that he'd be super strong. And that does mean that he's not afraid to play, at least get in there and be somewhat physical or aggressive. But he did also not draw a lot of foul attempts either, or free throw attempts either. I think it was only 2.2 a game. And some of that, I'm sure, had to do with the way that the offense flowed through Timmy and Kispert and Suggs. He's not getting as many touches, and touches that he gets are going to be more those easy layups off cuts or wide open 3-point shots.
Right.
But at that, I think that Ayayi's got some work to do as far as just getting stronger in the gym. And then 100%. Also developing his strengths, because Ayayi's not necessarily a top tier player at any one thing. He's just solid in a bunch of areas.
Outside of cutting, I would say he's an elite cutter.
Cutting, yeah. Elite cutter, which would mean that he's probably an elite IQ player. But defensively, he's got some work to do, as well as just becoming stronger and working on his physical profile.
Yeah. As with anyone at Gonzaga that was in that starting 5 of Suggs, Ayayi, Nembhard, Kispert, Timmy, any one of those guys, Ayayi very much included in this, maybe outside of anyone except maybe Kispert, maybe. Ayayi will always be in the right spot on offense every time. I really believe that he and Kispert, Suggs' passing helped too. Suggs is just an elite passer, but his and Kispert's ability to space was so key to that offense last year. And I really think in a lot of ways, because defenses in a way kind of knew what Kispert was doing, Ayayi was a key to a lot of that, of creating that misdirection. His backdoor cuts are so timely. He can lob it into the post really accurately. And he finishes around the rim too. We haven't brought that up yet. Not only can he get to the spot really well, but he'll finish when he gets the ball. Watching the highlights, he had some very acrobatic reverse layups that you wouldn't expect, because he'll dunk it, but he's not an above the rim player. But so he plays mostly under the rim, but he finishes around the rim. And what's it off the top of your head? I don't mean to put you on the spot. I'll try to think too, but is there a team that you think could really use Ayayi? I tend to think of more a playoff team where he can come into an already good situation, maybe contribute off the bench in some sparse minutes. He probably won't play much if he's on a playoff team to start his career. But what style are you thinking for Ayayi?
It's kind of funny that you asked me that because I was about ready to ask you that. It'd take the pressure off myself.
Right.
Well, I mean, kind of it's looking like he's probably going to be a late first round to early second round pick. I kind of think that he's probably going to be a second round pick personally. That's where I just see most draft boards having him. And I think
Agreed.
that looking at the draft, it makes more sense for him to be a second round pick. So with that being said, that gives a chance for theoretically really any team outside of the Blazers to have a shot at grabbing him.
We don't have a draft pick.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said that.
For the viewers at home who don't know.
Yes, we do not have a draft pick because we are very generous and give them away to other teams. But I think that Ayayi, I do agree. I think he fits really well on a playoff team. Just some names off the top of my head. It's I don't know. Maybe Dallas, just because he could play off like a Luka Doncic really, really well. I think having Doncic just high IQ and just willingness to pass the ball and set his teammates up in the right position. I've seen Hardaway is possibly looking at Miami as a destination. I know it's just a rumor right now, but Ayayi slotting in there in Dallas, I think would be a good spot. And actually another team, Miami could be if they can get in a better point guard there
as well.
Yeah, I don't know if he quite fits in currently just because they already have kind of a plethora of players who are already like him.
Sure.
And I'm not sure if Ayayi is a good enough creator with the ball at this point. In fact, I know he's not to where he could really thrive in a position like Miami, maybe where they already have so many wings. And I think that Ayayi would probably end up slotting in as a 2, maybe a 3 in small ball situations. So I would tend to think, I think Dallas, just off the top of my head, is a really good spot. What were you kind of thinking, Drew?
A couple teams that came to mind. I actually did think of Golden State.
Yeah, Golden State would be a good one.
Off the bench, they have a lot of young, energetic guys. They have the shooters, obviously, in Steph and Clay and Draymond, who's already so cerebral and smart that any young player who goes to Golden State is going to learn so much from Draymond Green if they're willing to. Having a guy who can knock down an open three, he does have to be a little more consistent at that. He does have to get that, but he does knock it down if he's open, but always being in the right spot. He'll get his touches in Golden State. He'll find him. Another team that I thought of is actually Milwaukee. Milwaukee, obviously a game away from the finals, so they don't have a ton of holes, but a lot of times the ball does kind of stop. Yes. Granted, that's part of the offense that they run, but Ayayi is a guy, they have shooters. Bryn Forbes, Middleton, Lopez, TBD if all those guys are back next year, but a guy that can create some off the ball offense, even if he's not a lockdown shooter. Like it's kind of unconventional in today's game, the way Ayayi creates off ball offense, but he does. He just creates it going to the rim instead of spurting out for a 3. I think there's a use for him in Milwaukee with a guy who can kind of facilitate some offensive flow. I think New York can always add to their depth. And another team that's just going to run out of, because they have so many stars, but are going to run out of depth that could use a guy like that is Brooklyn.
Yeah.
They're going to have to pay all their guys if they want to keep them. They're going to have to keep retooling with similar to what Golden State did during the Durant era, where they just had to keep bringing in fresh young guys off the bench and then let them walk when their first contract was up because they had to pay all their stars. A team like Brooklyn, where he could probably play off the bench if he really proved himself and provide some energy and spacing around elite players.
Yeah, 100%. And I think too in Milwaukee, that could be a good fit, like replacing a guy like Connaughton, for instance.
Sure.
Because I think that we've seen what Connaughton has to bring, and I don't see any reason why I couldn't bring that, except even on a cheaper deal, and also maybe have some more upside in different areas that Connaughton has already reached his peak at. So, and Connaughton on top of that next year would be behind Dante DiVincenzo once he's back healthy again anyways. So I definitely think that there's quite a few landing spots for a guy. I'll be interested to see what team ends up taking a flyer on him, but I think he's I would say he's a low risk. I don't know if he's like a high reward player, but I would definitely say a solid. Like he has a solid
NBA career.
Yeah, I could see him end up being like playing the role of like your typical 3 and D type of modern NBA player. So yeah, we'll see kind of where he lands.
Yeah, and yeah, to that point, it'd be kind of an unconventional 3 and D player, but
A little bit.
the
Yeah.
type of player that Phoenix has figured out this year, where they just surround their two and a half, 3 stars now that Aiton's become a star, but
Jeez,
the
yeah.
role players are just so good and they're so smart. A system like that, I think Ayayi would really thrive in. If you could get it more of a consistent shot, maybe a comp could be a guy like a Mikal Bridges or a Cam Johnson. Those guys are better shooters than Ayayi for sure. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, I think Bridges is a much better player.
oh, absolutely. All of those guys are considerably better players than Ayayi right now. But just looking at his ceiling, just smart, high IQ, where he could fit as a really, really solid role player in the NBA, I think is realistic for him.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we'll see where Ayayi lands.
Yeah, and then 4 weeks from now, July 29th, we'll find that out. So next week, make sure to subscribe to us here on Y Ball Starters. We're going to be covering Oregon's Chris Duarte, who's kind of looking somewhere 10 to 20 range. Probably not as high as 10, probably closer to 14 to 20 is Duarte's range right now, according to a lot of the mock drafts.
Yes.
So tune in. We'll be looking at Oregon's Chris Duarte, and then in future weeks, we'll also be looking at Gonzaga's Corey Kispert and Jalen Suggs, who both Suggs for sure lottery, Kispert possibly lottery. We'll see where it all shapes up. Again, be sure to subscribe. Check us out on Spotify if you like listening to full podcast episodes there. And then follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all at Y Ball Starters. Keep up with us. If you're a college athlete and you got something to plug, again, check us out. Hit us up and have a great rest of your day, everyone.